The stars shimmered like diamonds against the endless black of space. The Eclipse Vanguard, a sleek human warship bristling with advanced weaponry, emerged from hyperspace near an uncharted star system. Its hull gleamed faintly under the light of a distant sun, but there was no time to admire the view. Captain Elira Voss stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the data displayed on the holographic screens around her. Her crew worked silently, their fingers dancing over control panels as they processed the information flooding in from the ship's sensors. "Captain," said Lieutenant Terran, the communications officer, breaking the tense silence. "We've picked up a distress signal. It's coming from the third planet in the system." Elira frowned. "Human." Terran hesitated before nodding. "It matches human frequency patterns, but it's weak. Fragmented, like it's been looping for years." Years? That didn't make sense. Human colonies were supposed to report back regularly. If something had gone wrong, why hadn't anyone responded sooner? Still, ignoring a distress call wasn't an option. Humanity's survival depended on sticking together in this vast, hostile galaxy. "Prepare a landing party," Elira ordered, her voice calm but firm. "We'll investigate. Keep the ship on high alert. Something about this feels off." Minutes later, a small team led by Commander Rin stepped onto the surface of the mysterious planet. The air was thin but breathable, and the sky above them glowed with strange hues of purple and orange. What they saw made their blood run cold. The colony was abandoned, or worse. Buildings lay in ruins, vehicles rusted away, and eerie symbols were carved into every available surface. Trees twisted unnaturally toward the sky, their bark blackened as if burned. "This place is dead," muttered Ensign Kale, clutching his rifle tightly. "Feels like no one's been here for decades." But then came the whispers. At first, it was faint, a soft murmur that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Then it grew louder, more insistent. "You shouldn't have come," the voices hissed. "Leave while you still can." Commander Rin raised a hand, signaling the team to stop. "Is that coming through our comms?" Before anyone could answer, movement caught their attention. Shadows darted between the crumbling structures, too fast to be seen clearly. Whatever they weren't human. Back on the Eclipse Vanguard, alarms suddenly blared. Red lights flashed across the bridge as the ship's AI announced, "Unauthorized access detected. Multiple systems compromised." Elira's heart sank. They'd walked right into a trap. "Rin," she barked into her communicator, "get back to the ship now. We're under attack." Static crackled in response. Then silence. On the planet below, the shadows closed in. And aboard the warship, the battle had only just begun. The landing party froze as the shadows moved closer, their shapes shifting unnaturally in the dim light. Commander Rin tightened his grip on his rifle, scanning the area with sharp eyes. "Stay alert," he whispered to his team. "Whatever's out there, it's not friendly." Ensign Kale adjusted his helmet, his breathing audible over the comms. "What are those things?" he asked nervously. Before anyone could answer, the shadows lunged. Alien drones, small, insect-like machines with glowing red eyes, burst from the ruins, swarming toward them. Their metallic bodies buzzed ominously as they unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The team dove for cover behind crumbling walls, returning fire with their plasma rifles. But the drones were fast, darting unpredictably and striking without warning. "Captain, we're under attack." Rin shouted into his communicator. Static was the only reply. On the Eclipse Vanguard, Captain Elira Voss clenched her fists as alarms continued to blare across the bridge. The ship's systems flickered erratically, screens flashing with lines of code that shouldn't have been there. Lieutenant Terran frantically typed commands into her console, trying to regain control. "They're hacking us," she exclaimed. "Whoever these aliens are, they know our tech better than we do." Elira's jaw tightened. "Divert all power to shields and weapons. I want every defensive system online now." But it wasn't just the ship's defenses being compromised. Strange symbols appeared on the main view screen, symbols eerily similar to the ones carved into the colony's ruins. Then came the whispers again, this time louder and more distorted. "You will leave, or you will die." "We're not going anywhere," the Lyra growled, glaring at the screen. She turned to Lieutenant Kai, the ship's tactical officer. "Can we trace the source?" Kai hesitated, typing furiously. "It's coming from multiple locations, both inside the ship and down on the planet. They've infiltrated us somehow." Meanwhile, back on the surface, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The drones kept coming, relentless and overwhelming. Ensign Kale cried out as one grazed his shoulder with an energy blast, sending him sprawling to the ground. Rin dragged him behind cover while another crew member provided suppressing fire. "This isn't working," yelled Corporal Jinnah, reloading her weapon. "There's too many of them." Rin gritted his teeth. "Fall back to the shuttle. Move." As the team scrambled toward their escape route, something even stranger happened. One of the drones stopped mid-flight, hovering motionlessly before emitting a high-pitched whine. It exploded in a burst of blue light, revealing a humanoid figure standing where it had been moments earlier. Tall, pale, and clad in sleek armor that seemed to shimmer like liquid metal, the figure tilted its head, studying them with cold, calculating eyes. "You should not be here," it said in a voice that sounded both mechanical and hauntingly human. Rin raised his rifle cautiously. "Who, or what, are you?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, it extended a hand, and suddenly, the remaining drones retreated, vanishing into the shadows as quickly as they'd appeared. The silence that followed was deafening. "What just happened?" Kale muttered, clutching his injured arm. "I don't know," Rin admitted, lowering his weapon slightly. "But I don't think it's over." He was right. Back on the Eclipse Vanguard, the alien presence grew stronger. Systems began shutting down one by one, plunging sections of the ship into darkness. Crew members panicked as doors sealed themselves shut, trapping some in corridors while others found themselves locked out of critical areas. And then the unthinkable occurred. A shadowy figure materialized on the bridge, stepping through the wall as if it weren't even there. Its glowing eyes scanned the room, locking onto Captain Elira Voss. "You have made a grave mistake," it said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "Your kind always does." Elira stood her ground, though her heart pounded wildly. "If you wanted to talk, you could have done it without attacking us." The figure tilted its head again, almost amused. "Talk? No, this is war." With that, the lights went out entirely, plunging the bridge, and the entire ship, into chaos. Darkness enveloped the Eclipse Vanguard, broken only by the faint glow of emergency lights. Panic rippled through the crew as systems continued to fail, leaving them blind and vulnerable. Captain Elira Voss stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing. The shadowy figure that had appeared on the bridge was gone, but its presence lingered like a chill in the air. "What just happened?" Lieutenant Terran asked, her voice trembling as she tried to reboot her console. "Where did it go?" "I don't know," Elira admitted, her tone sharp but controlled. "But we need to get the ship back online. Now." As if on cue, alarms blared again, this time from deeper within the vessel. A new message flashed across the remaining functional screens. "Unauthorized access detected. Engineering bay compromised." Elira clenched her jaw. "Kai, take a squad and secure engineering. We can't let them sabotage our core systems." "Yes, Captain," Kai replied, already moving toward the door. He gestured for two nearby security officers to follow him, their weapons drawn. Meanwhile, things were getting worse by the second. In the corridors outside the bridge, strange noises echoed. Metal groaning, footsteps that didn't match human gaits, and faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Crew members huddled together, clutching whatever tools or weapons they could find. Fear spread faster than any virus. Back on the planet's surface, Commander Rin and his team finally reached their shuttle. They climbed aboard quickly, slamming the hatch shut behind them. Jenna secured Kale into one of the seats, applying a makeshift bandage to his wounded shoulder. "We're not safe yet," Rin said grimly, taking the pilot's seat. "If those things are infiltrating the ship, we might be walking right into another trap." He was right. As the shuttle lifted off, heading back toward the Eclipse Vanguard, they noticed something unsettling. The ship's exterior was crawling with more of those insect-like drones. Their glowing red eyes pulsed in unison, as if communicating silently with each other. On board the warship, chaos reigned. Lieutenant Kai and his team reached the engineering bay to find it eerily quiet. Too quiet. The lights flickered sporadically, casting long shadows across the walls. "Stay sharp," Kai whispered, motioning for his team to spread out. They moved cautiously, checking every corner. Then they saw it, a figure slumped against a wall near the main reactor. At first glance, it looked human, but as they approached, they realized something was horribly wrong. It was Engineer Malik, one of the ship's top technicians. His skin was deathly pale, his eyes vacant and glassy. When he spoke, his voice was fragmented, layered with an unnatural echo. "They are here," Malik rasped, his head lolling unnaturally. Inside, everywhere. Before anyone could react, Malik convulsed violently. Blue light erupted from his body, engulfing him in a surge of energy. When the light faded, he was no longer human. His form shifted, merging seamlessly with the ship's machinery around him. Wires snaked out of his arms and torso, connecting him directly to the reactor. "What the hell is happening?" one of the security officers shouted, raising his weapon. "Don't shoot," Kai barked. "We don't know what that thing can do." But it was too late. Malik, or what used to be Malik, turned its glowing gaze toward them. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, emitting a high-pitched screech that sent waves of pain through everyone's heads. Lights exploded overhead, sparks raining down as the reactor began to overload. "Get out of here," Kai yelled, pushing his team toward the exit. As they fled, the hybrid Malik merged fully with the reactor, its body dissolving into streams of data that flowed through the ship's systems. Back on the bridge, Captain Ilera felt the change immediately. The temperature dropped sharply, and the whispers returned, louder this time. "They're inside the ship now," she muttered, gripping the edge of her command chair tightly. "And they're using our technology against us." The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just an attack, it was infiltration. These creatures weren't invaders. They were survivors. Survivors who knew how to adapt, evolve, and weaponize everything they touched, including humanity itself. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. Captain Elira Voss stared at the chaos unfolding around her. The whispers had grown louder, almost deafening now, echoing through the ship like a ghostly core. Every screen on the bridge flickered with fragmented images, symbols that seemed to pulse and shift as if alive. Crew members exchanged panicked glances, unsure whether their own minds were playing tricks on them, or if something truly alien was invading their thoughts. "We need answers," Elira said firmly, breaking the tension. "Terran, access the colony's archives again. Find anything you can about these creatures, or whoever they are." Terran nodded, her fingers flying over the console despite the erratic power surges. After several tense minutes, she found something. A buried file labeled Project Genesis. As she opened it, grainy footage began playing on the main view screen. It showed humans in bulky environmental suits standing amidst a lush green landscape, planting machinery into the ground. But behind them, shadowy figures watched silently from the trees. This is impossible," Terran whispered, her voice trembling. "This planet wasn't supposed to have intelligent life. We terraformed it centuries ago." Elira leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "What happened here?" The video cut to logs recorded by one of the colonists. A man with weary eyes appeared on screen, his voice heavy with guilt. We didn't know what we were doing. When we arrived, this world already had its own ecosystem, an ancient species far older than humanity. They lived in harmony with their environment, communicating through frequencies we couldn't understand. At first, they seemed peaceful, but when we started altering the atmosphere, everything changed. Static interrupted the recording briefly before resuming. The man looked even more haggard now. They retaliated, not violently, not at first. They tried to warn us. Their symbols, their sounds, it was all a language. But we ignored them. We thought they were primitive. By the time we realized our mistake, it was too late. Our machines poisoned their world, killing millions of them. What survived adapted, using pieces of our technology against us. The log ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "They're not just aliens," Illyra murmured. "They're hybrids, fragments of humanity fused with whatever was left of their kind." Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Lights dimmed further, and the whispers coalesced into a single voice, one that resonated directly inside their heads. "You destroyed us once. You will not do so again." Illyra straightened, determination hardening her features. She activated the shipwide communicator. "Attention, crew. This isn't just an attack. These beings are victims of humanity's past mistakes. If we want to survive, we need to understand them and make them see we've changed." Her words sparked debate among the crew. Some argued that showing weakness would only invite destruction, while others believed diplomacy might be their only hope. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Kai returned to the bridge, his face pale and drawn. "Captain," he said urgently, "you need to hear this." He played back audio captured during their retreat from engineering. Amidst the screeches and mechanical noises, there was a faint message repeated over and over. "Help us." Illyra's breath caught. These weren't mindless attackers. They were desperate survivors clinging to existence. And somehow, they knew humanity was responsible for their suffering. "We'll find a way to talk to them," she declared, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. "But we need proof that we're willing to listen." Terran, broadcast a signal across all frequencies. "Tell them we're ready to negotiate, if they give us a chance." As the transmission went out, the ship fell eerily silent. For a moment, it felt like the entire universe held its breath. Then came a response, not hostile, but cautious. A lone hybrid figure materialized on the bridge, stepping through the wall as if it were water. Its glowing eyes locked onto Illyra, studying her intently. "You dare speak to us?" it asked, its voice layered with both curiosity and anger. "After all you have done?" Illyra met its gaze without flinching. "Yes, because we're still capable of learning, of changing. Let us prove it." For the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered faintly in the darkness. The hybrid figure stood motionless on the bridge, its glowing eyes fixed on Captain Illyra Voss. The air around it seemed to hum with energy, and every crew member held their breath, unsure if this moment would end in violence or dialogue. Illyra didn't flinch. She knew that one wrong move could shatter the fragile connection they had managed to establish. "We're listening," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "Tell us what you want." The hybrid tilted its head slightly, as though processing her words. Then it spoke, its voice layered with echoes, both mechanical and organic. "You claim to wish for peace, yet your kind has only ever brought destruction. Why should we trust you?" Illyra hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Because we've seen the consequences of our actions. We know what happened here, what humanity did to your people. And we're willing to make amends. But we can't undo the past unless you give us a chance to build a better future." The hybrid's expression, or what passed for an expression, remained unreadable. Behind it, faint whispers filled the room, overlapping voices speaking in tones too fast to comprehend. It was as if the creature were consulting others, though no one else was visible. After what felt like an eternity, the hybrid finally responded. "Very well. We will meet, but not aboard your vessel, on neutral ground, where neither side holds dominance." Elira nodded slowly. "Agreed. Where do you propose?" The hybrid extended a shimmering hand, and a holographic map materialized between them. It highlighted a location on the planet's surface, a vast, open plain surrounded by jagged cliffs. "Here, come unarmed, or negotiations will end before they begin." With that, the hybrid dissolved into thin air, leaving the bridge eerily silent once more. Back on the planet below, Commander Rin and his team prepared for the meeting. They had returned to the ship briefly to report their findings, but were now tasked with accompanying Captain Voss to the designated site. Rin wasn't happy about leaving the safety of the Eclipse Vanguard, especially given how unpredictable these hybrids had proven to be. "This is insane," he muttered under his breath as he double-checked his equipment. "We're walking into their territory without weapons. What happens if they turn on us?" Elira overheard him and turned, her gaze firm. "Then we die trying to do the right thing. If we show up armed, it'll only confirm their belief that we're here to fight. This is our chance to change the narrative, to prove we're not the same humans who destroyed their world centuries ago." Rin clenched his jaw, but didn't argue further. He trusted Elira, even if he didn't fully agree with her approach. When they arrived at the meeting site, the landscape was eerily beautiful. The wind carried a low hum, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the rocks scattered across the plain. A group of hybrids emerged from the shadows, their forms shifting and shimmering like liquid metal. At their center stood a taller figure, one that radiated authority. "I am Calith." The leader introduced itself, its voice deeper and more resonant than the others. "I speak for those who wish to see coexistence rather than conflict." Elira stepped forward, raising her hands to show she carried no weapons. "I'm Captain Elira Voss. I speak for humanity, but also for those who regret the mistakes of our ancestors. Tell me how we can move forward." Calith studied her for a long moment before responding. "Your regret means little without action. Prove your sincerity. Help us reclaim what you took from us." Before Elira could respond, chaos erupted. From the cliffs above, another faction of hybrids attacked, more aggressive, their bodies bristling with weaponized appendages. Energy blasts tore through the air, forcing both groups to scatter. "Betrayal," Caliph shouted, turning toward the attackers. "They refuse peace." Elira realized too late that not all hybrids wanted negotiation. As the battle raged, she made a split-second decision. Grabbing Calith's arm, she shouted, "If you truly want peace, follow me. Together, we can stop this." For a moment, Calith hesitated. Then, with a nod, it signaled its followers to retreat alongside the humans. The seeds of alliance had been planted, but the cost of mistrust was already painfully clear. The retreat from the meeting site was chaotic and desperate. Energy blasts lit up the darkening sky as the aggressive faction of hybrids pursued them relentlessly. Captain Elira Voss led the group, her mind racing with strategies to keep both her crew and Calith's followers alive. The fragile trust they had built hung by a thread, and one wrong move could shatter it completely. "This way," Calith shouted, guiding them toward a narrow canyon that offered some cover. Its voice carried authority, but there was an edge of urgency in its tone. "We cannot fight them here." Elira glanced back at the pursuing hybrids, their weaponized forms cutting through the air like vengeful specters. She gritted her teeth. "We can't outrun them forever. We need a plan." As they reached the canyon, Calith signaled for its group to take defensive positions behind jagged rocks. Commander Rin and his team followed suit, crouching low to avoid detection. For a brief moment, the two factions worked together seamlessly, human and hybrid fighting side by side against a common enemy. But the truce felt tenuous. Every blast from the attackers' weapons sent tremors through the ground, shaking loose rocks and stirring doubt among the humans. Ensign Kale, clutching his injured arm, muttered under his breath. What if this is all just another trap? Rin shot him a sharp look. Stay focused. If we don't work together, none of us are getting out of here alive. Elira ignored the tension brewing around her. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on the ship, on the secrets buried within its systems. Something about the hybrid's knowledge of human technology gnawed at her. How did they adapt so quickly? And why did their attacks feel eerily precise, targeting vulnerabilities she hadn't even known existed? Back aboard the eclipsed Vanguard, Engineer Malik's transformation continued to wreak havoc. The hybrid Malik now controlled key sections of the ship, rerouting power and locking down critical areas. Lieutenant Kai and his team tried desperately to regain control, but every attempt only made things worse. It was as if the ship itself had turned against them. In the midst of the chaos, Lieutenant Terran stumbled upon something shocking. Hidden deep within the ship's classified databases was a file labeled Project Genesis Integration. When she opened it, her blood ran cold. The documents revealed that the Eclipse Vanguard wasn't just built using advanced human engineering. It incorporated reverse-engineered alien tech scavenged from previous encounters. Worse still, some of the materials used in its construction came directly from captured hybrid prisoners. Terran stared at the screen, her hands trembling. Oh no, what have we done? She rushed to share her findings with Captain Elira, transmitting the data to her portable device. By the time Elira received the message, the battle on the planet had reached a breaking point. The aggressive hybrids launched a final assault, forcing Calith's group and the humans into a tight corner. We're running out of options, Rin said grimly, reloading his rifle. If reinforcements don't arrive soon. They won't, Elira interrupted, her voice heavy. She held up her device, showing Calith the damning evidence. This is why your people hate us. We've been stealing from you, not just your world, but your very essence. This ship, she gestured vaguely upward. It's built using pieces of your kind. Calith's glowing eyes widened in shock. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. Even the attacking hybrids paused, as though sensing the gravity of the revelation. You knew? Calith asked, its voice layered with anger and betrayal. No, Elira admitted. Not until now. But I swear, we'll make this right, if you let us. Calith hesitated, its gaze flickering between Elira and the approaching enemy. Finally, it nodded. Then prove it. Together, we end this. With renewed determination, the Uneasy Alliance launched a counterattack. For the first time, humanity and hybrids truly fought as one. But the cost of their unity would leave scars deeper than any weapon could inflict. The counterattack began with a surge of desperation and resolve. Captain Elira Voss stood shoulder to shoulder with Calith, their combined forces launching a coordinated assault against the aggressive faction of hybrids. The attackers had anticipated resistance, but not unity, human and hybrid working as one. This unexpected alliance tipped the scales, if only slightly. Focus fire on their leaders, Calith commanded, its voice resonating like rolling thunder. It extended an arm, emitting a pulse of energy that disrupted the enemy's formations. If we break their chain of command, they'll falter. Elira nodded, relaying the strategy to her team. Commander Rin led the charge, directing his squad to target key adversaries, while Ensign Kale provided covering fire despite his injury. Each shot was precise, each movement calculated. For the first time in what felt like hours, hope flickered faintly amidst the chaos. But the battle wasn't won yet. The aggressive hybrids adapted quickly, splitting into smaller groups to flank their opponents. One group broke through the defensive line, heading straight for Elira and Calith. Captain, shouted Corporal Gina, rushing forward to intercept them. She fired her weapon, forcing the hybrids to scatter momentarily. But they regrouped almost instantly, their metallic bodies shimmering as they shifted forms mid-motion. We can't hold them forever. Rin yelled over the din of explosions and crackling energy blasts. We need reinforcements, or another way out. Calith turned to Elira, its glowing eyes intense. "There is a way. My people have hidden sanctuaries beneath the surface, places even the radicals cannot reach. If we can retreat there, we may stand a chance." Elira hesitated. Trusting Caliph meant putting herself and her crew at risk again. Yet staying here meant certain defeat. "Do it," she said finally. "Lead the way." Caliph signaled to its followers, who began activating concealed mechanisms embedded in the canyon walls. A section of rock slid aside, revealing a narrow passageway leading underground. "Go," Caliph urged. "We will cover your retreat." Elira didn't argue. She motioned for her team to move, ensuring no one was left behind. As they entered the tunnel, the sound of combat grew muffled, replaced by the eerie hum of alien machinery deep within the earth. The air grew colder, tinged with an otherworldly scent that made everyone uneasy. Behind them, Caliph and its loyalists fought fiercely to hold off the pursuing hybrids. Energy beams clashed in dazzling bursts of light, illuminating the canyon in fleeting flashes. Just as the last human disappeared into the passage, Caliph leaped backward, sealing the entrance with a wave of its hand. The rock slid shut with a deafening rumble, cutting off the sounds of battle. Inside the tunnel, the group pressed onward, guided by faint bioluminescent markings on the walls. Lieutenant Terran brought up the rear, clutching her datapad tightly. She couldn't shake the weight of the secrets she'd uncovered aboard the Eclipse Vanguard. "What happens when this is over?" she asked quietly, her voice barely audible over the echoes of their footsteps. "Even if we survive this fight, how do we face the truth about ourselves?" Elira glanced back at her, her expression unreadable. "We start by acknowledging our mistakes. Then we rebuild, not just our ship or our colony, but our relationships. With honesty this time." Ahead, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern illuminated by glowing crystals embedded in the ceiling. Hybrid figures emerged from the shadows, their forms less hostile than those they'd faced above. They watched silently as Caliph stepped forward, addressing them in a language that sounded like flowing water. "They're deciding whether to trust us," Caliph explained after a moment. "Many here believe all humans are the same, destroyers without remorse." "And you?" Elira asked, meeting its gaze. "What do you believe?" Caliph paused, its expression unreadable. "I believe change is possible, but belief alone won't save us. Actions will." As the hybrids deliberated, Elira realized the hardest battles were still ahead, not with weapons, but with words. And every choice she made now would shape the fragile future humanity so desperately needed. The cavern was eerily silent except for the soft hum of energy emanating from the glowing crystals above. The Hybrid Council, a group of elders with intricate patterns etched into their metallic skin, observed Captain Elira Voss and her crew with unreadable expressions. Their glowing eyes flickered faintly, as though analyzing every detail of the humans before them. "We have heard Caliph's plea," one of the elders finally spoke, its voice layered with echoes that reverberated through the chamber. "But trust must be earned. Your kind has betrayed us before." Elira stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I understand your hesitation. Humanity made mistakes, terrible ones, that cost your people everything. But we're here now because we want to make things right. Not just for survival, but because it's the only way forward." Caliph stood beside her, its presence lending weight to her words. "They are different," it said firmly. "This captain has shown courage and honesty. If we turn away allies now, we risk losing more than this battle. We risk losing any chance at lasting peace." The elders exchanged glances, their forms shimmering slightly as they communicated silently. Finally, one of them nodded. "Very well. We will aid you, but under one condition. You must help us neutralize the radicals who seek war at all costs. Only then can we begin to rebuild." Before Elira could respond, a sudden tremor shook the cavern. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. The aggressive faction of hybrids had breached the sanctuary. "They found us," shouted Commander Rin, raising his weapon instinctively. "How is that even possible?" Calith's expression darkened. "They've been tracking my energy signature. By bringing you here, I endangered my own people." "No," Elira said sharply. "This isn't your fault. We'll fight together, just like before." The hybrids sprang into action, their movements fluid and coordinated. They positioned themselves strategically around the cavern, using the natural terrain to their advantage. Calith turned to Elira, its glowing eyes intense. "You must protect the elders. Without them, our knowledge, and our hope for coexistence, dies." Elira nodded grimly. "Understood. Rin Jenna, guard the elders. Everyone else, follow me." As the first wave of attackers poured into the cavern, chaos erupted. Energy blasts lit up the dim space, casting jagged shadows on the walls. Elira fought alongside Calith, their combined efforts creating a formidable defense. But the enemy numbers were overwhelming, and the tide began to turn against them. In the heat of the battle, Calith noticed something alarming. A group of radicals had bypassed the main conflict and was heading straight for the elders. Without hesitation, Calith broke away from the front line, intercepting the attackers. "Calith, wait!" Elira shouted, realizing what it intended to do. "I swore to protect my people," Calith replied, its voice filled with quiet resolve. "This is my duty." With a burst of energy, Calith unleashed a powerful pulse that engulfed the radicals, neutralizing them, but at great cost. Its form began to destabilize, fragments of its body dissolving into streams of light. "No," Elira cried, rushing toward it. "There has to be another way." Calith shook its head, its expression softening. "Courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Remember that, Captain. Fight for a future worth living." And with those final words, Calith vanished, leaving behind only silence. The loss hit everyone hard, but there was no time to grieve. Reinforced by Calith's sacrifice, the remaining hybrids rallied, driving the radicals back. When the dust settled, the cavern was secure, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Elira looked at the glowing crystal where Calith had stood moments earlier. "We won't forget what you did," she whispered. Turning to her crew, she added, "And we won't let your sacrifice be in vain." The battle may have been won, but the scars of betrayal and loss would linger, for both humans and hybrids alike. The aftermath of the battle hung heavy in the cavern, a somber quiet replacing the chaos. The glowing crystals above cast an ethereal light over the scene, but it did little to lift the weight of grief pressing down on everyone. Captain Elira Voss stood near the spot where Calith had sacrificed itself, her fists clenched tightly at her sides. Her mind replayed the hybrid leader's final words, words that now burned within her like a vow. "We can't let this be for nothing," she said aloud, breaking the silence. Her voice was steady, though her heart ached with loss. "Calith gave us a chance. Now we have to honor it." Lieutenant Terran approached cautiously, holding her davad. "Captain, there's something you need to see." She hesitated before continuing. "While we were fighting, I accessed more files from the Eclipse Vanguard. It turns out the ship's experimental weapons weren't designed just for combat. They were also meant to disrupt alien neural links without causing permanent harm." Elira frowned. "You mean they're non-lethal?" Terran nodded. "Yes, but only if calibrated correctly. Right now, they're set to maximum output, which could kill. If we adjust them." Elira's eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. "We can use them against the radicals, not to destroy, but to disable, to give peace a real chance." Commander Rin stepped forward, his face lined with doubt. "And what if it doesn't work? What if they don't stop even then?" "It has to work," Elira replied firmly. "If we keep fighting fire with fire, we'll lose everything. Humanity will never break free of its cycle of destruction. We've been given tools that might save lives instead of taking them." That's what Caliph fought for. That's what we owe them." The hybrids who remained in the sanctuary watched silently, their glowing eyes reflecting uncertainty. One of the elders finally spoke, its voice layered with both sorrow and hope. "Your kind has caused much pain. Yet your captain speaks wisely. Will you truly risk yourselves to spare others?" "Yes," Illyra answered without hesitation, "because that's how we prove we've changed." Back aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, Engineer Malik's hybrid form continued to wreak havoc. The ship's systems flickered erratically, and sections of the crew were still locked out of critical areas. Lieutenant Kai and his team worked tirelessly to recalibrate the weapons, guided by instructions transmitted from the planet below. Every second felt like an eternity, but they knew failure wasn't an option. Meanwhile, back in the cavern, preparations for the final confrontation began. Using coordinates provided by the surviving hybrids, Illyra's team identified the radical stronghold, a fortified network of tunnels deep beneath the surface. The plan was simple yet perilous: infiltrate the base, deploy the recalibrated weapons, and neutralize the threat without bloodshed. As they moved through the labyrinthine tunnels, tension ran high. The air grew colder, and faint whispers echoed around them, warning of danger ahead. When they reached the stronghold, the sight took their breath away. Dozens of radicals gathered in a massive chamber, their weaponized forms pulsing with energy. At their center stood a towering figure, their leader, radiating raw power. "You dare enter our domain?" the leader hissed, its voice reverberating like thunder. "You will pay for your treachery." Before anyone could respond, the radicals attacked. Energy blasts filled the air, forcing the humans and hybrids to take cover. Illyra signaled for Kai's team to activate the recalibrated weapons remotely. A low hum emanated from the devices trapped to their suits, sending waves of disruptive energy rippling outward. One by one, the radicals froze mid-motion, their bodies convulsing as the neural links binding them together collapsed. They fell to the ground, unconscious but alive. The towering leader roared in defiance, attempting to resist, but even it succumbed to the overwhelming force. When the last radical fell silent, the chamber was eerily still. Illyra exhaled deeply, lowering her weapon. "It's done." The surviving hybrids stepped forward, their expressions softening. For the first time, they looked at the humans not as enemies, but as potential allies. "This is your chance," Illyra said softly, addressing both her crew and the hybrids, "to rebuild. Together." And in that moment, amidst the ruins of war, the seeds of redemption began to sprout. The chamber fell silent, the echoes of battle fading into the stillness. Captain Illyra Voss stood amidst the unconscious forms of the radical hybrids, her chest rising and falling with exertion. Her team gathered around her, their faces etched with exhaustion, but also a glimmer of hope. The surviving hybrids watched silently, their glowing eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "We did it," Lieutenant Terran whispered, breaking the quiet. Her voice trembled slightly, as if she couldn't quite believe it herself. Illyra nodded, though her expression remained somber. "Not just us," she said, looking at the hybrids who had fought alongside them. "All of us. Together." One of the elder hybrids stepped forward, its form shimmering faintly in the dim light. "Your actions today have changed much," it said, its layered voice resonating through the chamber. "But trust is not easily rebuilt. What will you do now?" Illyra met the elder's gaze without flinching. "We'll start by leaving this planet and taking nothing that doesn't belong to us. No more stealing resources, no more exploiting your kind. If humanity wants to survive, we have to learn to coexist, not conquer." The elder tilted its head, studying her intently. "And what of your ship? It carries pieces of our ancestors within it. Will you abandon it as well?" Illyra hesitated, her mind racing. She glanced at Lieutenant Kai, who had joined them after ensuring the recalibrated weapons were safely powered down. "The Eclipse Vanguard was built on stolen foundations," she admitted, But tearing it apart won't undo the past. Instead, we'll use it as a symbol, a reminder of where we went wrong and how far we've come since then. Kai nodded in agreement. We can repurpose the ship's systems to support hybrid technology instead of exploiting it. Make it a bridge between our peoples, not a weapon. The elder considered this for a long moment before nodding slowly. Then perhaps there is hope for both our kinds yet. Back aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by Malik's transformation. Though his hybrid form had destabilized after the final confrontation, fragments of his consciousness lingered in the ship's systems. Lieutenant Terran discovered traces of his thoughts buried deep within the AI core. Regrets, hopes, and a plea to be remembered. He wasn't just a victim, Terran murmured, tears welling up in her eyes. He was trying to warn us all along. Elira placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll honor him, and everyone else who suffered because of our mistakes. As the ship prepared to leave orbit, the hybrids gathered outside to watch its departure. Calith's sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone, but his vision of peace guided their steps forward. Before the Eclipse Vanguard entered hyperspace, Elira transmitted one final message to the planet below. To those we wronged, we offer our deepest apologies. To those who trusted us, we give our thanks. And to those who doubted us, we make this promise. Humanity will change. We will listen. We will learn. This is only the beginning. When the stars stretched into streaks of light, signaling their return to human space, the bridge fell quiet once more. Each member of the crew carried the weight of what they'd seen and done, but also the spark of redemption. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Reforms would face resistance, old habits would die hard, and trust would take generations to rebuild. Yet as Captain Elira Voss gazed out at the endless expanse of space, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. Humanity's survival depended not on conquest or domination, but on courage, humility, and the willingness to change. Calith's words echoed in her mind. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. And act they would. For the first time in centuries, humanity had taken a step towards something greater than itself. A new dawn awaited them, one forged not through destruction, but through understanding. The war had ended. The journey had only just begun.